As news broke that the most common U.S. tariffs were going away, mixed reaction from Americans.
I think it's a terrible ruling by the Supreme Court. I think it's an awful decision.
He's a bit of an unfair bully, and I think, well, hopefully he doesn't, come back to us in a negative way.
The president did come back, launching an unprecedented attack on the Supreme Court justices, calling them a disgrace.
I think it's an embarrassment to their families.
Immediately announcing a new 10% tariff on all goods coming to the U.S., and on Saturday taking to social media to raise that to 15%. He's using a different statute to do that, but he's limited. The tariffs can only go up to 15% and can only last 150 days unless Congress extends it. The president also has the power to tariff certain categories of goods, like steel and aluminum, and he can target specific countries. But to do that, it is a long, complicated process. What he can no longer do is simply put in place tariffs of any amount on any country for as long as he wants. So now the question, what happens to the roughly $175 billion that companies paid? Well, the president says they can sue, and they are. So they'll likely get their money back. But when it comes to the American people, the researchers say spent about $1,000 extra because of the tariffs last year on things like groceries, well, that's likely gone for good.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Something the president's critics have been quick to pick up on.
That's a tax on working people. Donald Trump now owes you a refund for every dollar of it. America's working families deserve a refund. Cut the check, Donald.
Government lawyers have already told judges that any money owed to companies will be paid back with interest. So while this decision has cost Trump political capital, it could end up costing the U.S. actual capital as well. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Well, John Diamond is the director at the Center for Tax and Budget Policy at Rice University. He says it'll be straightforward for large businesses to get tax refunds, but there'll be other complications.
I think it's pretty clear that they will win in court, but it'll take some time for those court cases to work their way through the system. The Customs and Border Patrol already issues refunds. Even now, they have processes where they have to issue refunds. So once we get the court orders in effect, I don't think the refunds will be all of that messy for larger firms. I think smaller firms are going to have a much more difficult time getting through the process and getting their refunds. In terms of the trade deals, that's where the real mess is. Like, what do you do if you're Taiwan or Great Britain and you have this existing trade deal, but now it's kind of been turned upside down? The U.S. Congress is so evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats. I don't see any way for Congress to either pass a law that would allow the IEEPA tariffs to come back into effect. And I don't see Congress extending this past the 150 days. The votes just aren't there. Even though Republicans have power, there are still more than a handful of Republicans that are, interested in freer trade than Trump is. And I think that's going to be the big sticking point.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.